that ditched a third of his shares of stock right before the oil well blew. It's just a coincidence. It's just an accident. He sent a letter to the BP CEO head on July 9th demanding why black people were overrepresented in the most physically difficult, lowest paying jobs with the most significant exposure to toxins. Known to some as the inmate state, Louisiana has the highest rate of incarceration of any other state in the country. 70% of its 39,000 inmates are African-American men, and of course they are forbidden to speak to the public or the media by PP's now notorious gag rule. And it goes on and on and on. Work release inmates are required to work for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, sometimes averaging 72 hours a day. These are long hours for performing what may be arguably the most toxic job in America, although the dangers of mixed oil and dispersant exposure are largely unknown, so this mainstream media report claims. The chemicals in crude oil can damage every system in the body, as well as cellular structures and DNA. But you know, it's not just the United States that is dealing with an oil spill at this time. Let's bring on the next report. Large China oil spill threatens sea life and water quality. And yes, that's actually really a man drowning in oil there on the lower right-hand side of the screen. In the 5 days since a pipeline exploded, no real explanation why. And why this is going on when the U.S. Navy is rolling into the Beijing Strait, the Yellow Sea, right in China's waters. No explanation. However, in this coincidence, the pipeline exploded at the northeastern port of Dalian. The oil spread over 165 square miles of water. State media has said no more oil is leaking into the sea, but the total amount of oil that was spilled is not yet clear. An official warned the spill posed a severe threat to sea life and water quality. One cleanup worker has drowned, his body coated in crude. There have been several more earthquakes this week. Yes, there's more solar activity now on the planet, and there's more earthquakes, there's more volcanic eruptions. We are going through a natural cycle. A series of 4 strong earthquakes spanning just over an hour struck the Philippines' Moro Gulf on Saturday morning. Tsunami warning canceled. Also, one day earlier on Friday, a quake struck the Quebec City area. We also saw some other reports of earthquakes off the coast of California. Now, there's a video we're going to play for you, and we're going to come back, and I'm going to talk about the economy briefly. Tier 5 unemployment extension calls grow louder. And, of course, we saw a Federal Reserve bill get passed this week that actually gives the banks even more power. So we didn't see the reenactment of the Glass-Steagall Act, anything but the big banks wrote the bill. This is a debate between 2 economic analysts on MSNBC. One of the gentlemen is making some great points, a lot of points I make on this film. I'm going to let him do some of the talking for me. But you can see how the guy on the right, he sounds English, how he talks to him like he's a fearmonger because he's simply stating the facts, a lot of facts that a lot of people are in denial about. Bill, go ahead and roll it.
Track 1. Their savings rate is about 4%. It should go much, much higher. And they're still smarting from the credit crisis. You know, what he did say was very important, that companies are very afraid of having another fall 2008 event. They are hoarding cash because the money markets got completely frozen in 2008. That's why they're hoarding cash. And they're doing it because they believe that another credit crisis down the road.
Are we saying that's
down the road.
irrational?
No, it is very rational because the next credit crisis will be a sovereign debt crisis, and it's about 3 years away.
Dan, do you believe that it's... Oh, we've lost Dan. I'm not sure that it is rational.
Okay,
that level of
30 to 50% of all federal tax revenue will go to pay the interest on the debt in 2015.
Yeah, but these are multinationals. It's not all about America. They're spread around the world.
China is slowing. Europe is slowing. They have embraced austerity, thank God. The United States has yet to embrace austerity. That's coming, too, down the road. Right. But short-term austerity is very painful.
People are still making good profits, though. It's what's in the interests. What is in the long-term interests of those companies? And companies are different from individuals because you've got to work for the good of that organization. And if those CEOs are scarred in an inappropriate way psychologically, then they should go.
No, they're
and the next generation that's prepared to embrace the opportunity
you want them
to take
hire
over and spend
so you're
the
saying
money.
They should spend money, hire people, buy capital goods when there's no final demand?
I'm saying that
total household debt now stands at 92% of GDP.
Most interesting.
It's normally about 40% of GDP. Households have a lot of deleveraging ahead of them, so they're not going to spend money if there's no final demand.
I don't see that in Latin America. I don't see that in Asia.
And when they do start spending money, it's going to be in Latin
because
America
you got
and Asia.
blinders on, buddy.
Capacity is falling.
I want to know how many CEOs through this earnings season, they're not saying they're going to expand, but at what point will they go in front of the board with an expansionary plan? They must be on the verge of doing that because they're looking
when they see the consumer has
a year ahead.
When they see the consumer has reconciled their balance sheet.
Do you not think the consumer will have turned tail in a year's time?
No, not at all.
That's a very serious judgment.
Well, household debt, I just said household debt as a percentage of GDP is at all-time record highs.
But when will
I
it
just said
turn?
the people were broke. What don't you understand about that?
Pay down debt. That takes years. It takes years for a private sector to become
Are you
stable.
writing off the American economy for years?
Yeah, I am. And I think our worst
That's a huge thing to say.
our worst troubles are ahead of us because we bailed out the
I'm sure talking to your family is
private
just like
sector
this sometimes.
by seriously endangering the public sector.
I think you're wrong.
And you can't do that.
I think you're wrong.
Okay, you can think all you want. Okay, you don't think too much. How about that?
Ratings held for Enron too and CDOs, but they still collapsed.
Yeah, because you can always raise more tax. The American government can always tax people more. It will always pay its bills.
Excuse me. If you can raise taxes to 100%, does that mean you're going to increase revenue?
Nonsense.
What is nonsense?
That's a political
view. You could raise taxes and always get more revenue.
View,
so you could raise taxes and always increase your revenue. There's no change in behavior.
No,
we should just raise taxes to 100% and pay our national debt.
America will always be able to pay its bills.
And how do you know that?
Because it will always
because the bond vigilantes will always be asleep.
You're just peddling the power of nightmares, and it goes on all the time.
I'm peddling the power
You're a
of
thought
nightmares.
criminal.
Okay, you know what?
You've been going to those blogs.
That's what people told me in 2006
economy's strong.
about the housing market. Oh, nationally speaking, the housing market could never contract, could never decline. But it brought down the whole global economy, Mr. Hobbs.
I have to say, first of all, I wish I'd brought a black and white striped shirt. And second, I've known Michael for not a long time, but maybe 5 years. And
6 years?
he has been remarkably prescient about a lot of things. So, anyway, we got to go. But I have enjoyed sitting here listening.
Very specific key points to make sure you're aware of. 24 multinationals just moved their headquarters to Shanghai. China's announcing they're going to dump the dollar, and they have an agreement with a lot of other countries. The new East NATO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO, they have a growing alliance in the East, a response to NATO and U.S. Western imperialism. The things that are being done in our name are going to hurt us in the end. They're going to threaten our safety, our security, in fact, our sovereignty, when you look at how much debt is being borrowed to fight these illegal, immoral, unethical wars. It's not just the blood that's on our hands. It's a lot more than that, a lot of debt, a lot of heavy, heavy chains. U.S. identifies vast mineral riches in Afghanistan. This is key to understanding that just now, now they unravel this fact that they have found trillions of dollars in assets when it comes to lithium, which makes what? Cell phone batteries. That's right. We play into the system by the very purchases that we make in this matrix. It's not just conflict diamonds we have to worry about or be aware of. It's conflict minerals. And so in this report, which comes from the New York Times, and they admit they didn't want to let this fact come out, Bill, number one, until they were at a point in the war that was very critical in terms of the propaganda war, convincing the people that the war needs to be continued no matter what, no matter how deeply we go into debt, no matter how many men kill themselves on the front lines because they're waking up to the fact that they're not truly protecting the tribe or their families by engaging in this insanity, by becoming a mercenary. And that's what a lot of Marines have become because of the way that our Marines have been used and misused, highly misdirected. It's how the military is used. It's not about being anti-military, which is a perception that a lot of people have. But if you look at history, the military has been used for a lot of horrific things, but not just the United States. It's a part of human nature. It's a part of empire. It's a part of the dark lords of empire that know